Hello out there, folks. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all having a great new year so far. I know I am. In fact, I would say it's been overwhelming in terms of racing simulations. So much new content dropped over the Christmas period for a bunch of different sims, and there have been new builds of a bunch of different sims. There have been improvements and contents galore. It's just been overwhelming. So today I'm just going to be focusing quite specifically on one of those, and that is the new build of Automobilista 2 by Reza Studios. And I'm not going to be doing an overview of everything that's come with it because there's so much content, cars, tracks, improvements, the lot. So I'm just going to be concentrating in this video on one piece of new content, and that is the new Nissan GTR Nismo GT3. Which I have to say, look at it there, isn't it beautiful? I'm quite impressed with, spoiler alert. And the detailing on this is just fantastic. It really is. Reza have done a great job on the detailing visually. So we're going to be looking at that. I'm also going to be taking it for a race so we can concentrate also or focus on the improvements to the AI, because this build has come with a bunch of improvements to the AI. So we're going to take it for a race, and you're going to be able to see, whilst I can tell you what I like about this, but you're going to be able to actually see what's going on with the AI and judge for yourselves. I'm also going to be showing you what I think is a great combination, as in track car combination, because obviously in certain sims, more so with some than others, there are some combos that work really well, and there are some that still need some work. So the combination is going to be Laguna Seca. If you've been watching my recent videos, I've been using this track for testing across a whole range of sims just recently, so I know it well. So the GT3s at this track work really well. These are, well, I'll just show you if you want to recreate the race just very quickly, and you can pause the video on any of these screens if you like, if you want to see it in more detail, or take down these settings. These are all my settings for the race. We are on full damage with max scaling, and everything is basically set to authentic or real in terms of mechanical failures and tyre wear and all that sort of thing. Basically full sim. So go ahead and pause the video now if you want and have a look at that screen. Those are my gameplay settings. The race settings, so I've got quite strict rules, as you can see there. You can pause the video if you want to see my rules for the race. Our opponents are set at 110 skill level and at medium aggression. And I'll say why I chose medium aggression rather than max or low later on in the video. And we're starting from the back of the grid. The race is going to be 30 minutes, and during the race I'll tell you about the car and maybe compare it to a couple of other sims as well that it's in. It's going to be 30 minutes, and we're going with 2 weather slots synced to the race, so they will change over the course of the race from dry to wet, and using a bit of extra time progression, so the sky will change a little bit whilst we're racing, and default progressing live track setting. So let's go to the track. So this car is it's now in Automobilista 2, but it also is already, of course, in Assetto Corsa Competizione by Kunos, and also the original Assetto Corsa, also by Kunos as well. So I have driven this car in all of the sims at this track in the same conditions, and I will say, quite pleased to say, that its handling characteristics.
29 minutes.
That's Jim, crew chief Jim. He'll be guiding us through the race.
Celsius. B30.
Cheers, Jim. If you make sure that you set up the car very similar, or as close as damned it in each sim, so for instance in this sim, on the default setup, it comes with a differential preload of 100. If you match that in Assetto Corsa Competizione, for example, and match the brake biases and a few other things, it handles the general characteristics of the handling of the car are very similar in ACC, AMS2, and also in AC. Although I will just note that in AC you don't have a preload that you can change. You only have coast and power, so you have to sort of set up the diff so it feels the same, if you know what I mean. But the handling characteristics of the car feel very, very similar across all three of those sims. The main difference that you notice between the three of them would be, well, the difference between the sims themselves, which is the tyre physics and the force feedback, because the force feedback feels a little different in each sim, and the tyre physics with the, you know, them all being on different types of tyre models feels slightly, the way the car breaks away, that sort of thing, feels ever so slightly different or massively different depending on how finely you want to look at it. But it generally feels very similar across all the sims, so I'm very pleased to say that. I am running on a pretty much default setup here. I've got probably far too much fuel for the race, but that's fine. Keep more weight in the car, keep me anchored. I have, though, taken all of the traction control and the anti-lock brakes off, and I'll be having them off at least until it starts raining, because that's how I like to roll. And I've moved the brake bias a little bit forward, because when I was testing it in Assetto Corsa Competizione, it was about 62 to the front, so I've matched it in here. I might change that throughout the course of the race. The only other thing that I've really changed, apart on the default setup, just those, and I had heard from some people speaking on the Reza forums that they were having a little bit of trouble, or they found the back end could, under acceleration out of slow corners, could be a little bit breakaway, a little bit unruly. If you want to solve that, bump stops. Because you'll see my rear bump stops are at 0mm here. By default, they're all the way up to 25. So as soon as you accelerate, as soon as the car starts leaning on the back end, it's hitting those bump stops really quickly. And basically then you've got rock solid suspension. And it's got nowhere to go, so it will slide. So if you want to counteract that, you can turn your traction control on. That's not like what, if you like, but I don't like to do that. Just take out the bump stops. There you go, problem solved. Right, okay, so let's get out there. Let's see how the AI behave and enjoy this car. I hope you enjoy this video. And by the way, if you do enjoy this video and you want to find this channel again in the depths of YouTube, you can always hit that subscribe button, and then you'll always get notifications from me when I'm making a video. Or come and race with me when I run a live server. Right, let's do it.
B30, get ready.
1 second. I will just pop on a mirror in the HUD, because the car's mirror is slightly obscured on the right hand side of my screen, so I'm going to pop in a virtual mirror so you can see what's going on behind me as well as in front. So let's pop that on there and there. Okay, we'll save that and let's go.
Green, green, green.
Okay, so we're all cleanly up the starting grid. You'll see I've got my HUD up, so you can see all of my pedal inputs, throttle and brake on the right hand side there, speed I'm doing, and also any damage that I incur is in the little green widget at the bottom left of the screen. I'm getting squeezed slightly there, caught a little bit of sausage curb, and you can see the race standings on the left, top left corner of the screen, so you can see what position I'm in and what the AI are getting up to with each other. So with the default setup, the car is little bit understeery. It's a little bit pivoty, and I think some people have been wondering if that's a Automobilista 2 thing. Well, I do find it a little bit pivoty in general, this car. You see, and that's across the sims as well. I think that's because a lot of people say that about the Brazilian stock cars, but they're actually mid-engine cars. I know the engine's at the front, but it's in between the driver and the front axle, not over the front axle. So they're front mid-engine. This car, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the layout is pretty much near enough a front mid-engine car. Can we get an overtake here? Oh, it's close. There we go. See, the back end there's quite, it's not too unruly out of the corner. And we're right beside the purple Nismo here. So yeah, I do find it a little bit that way, but then again I find that with a lot of mid-engine cars. Now, when it comes to things like the sound, I'll mention the sound here. Compared to the sound in Assetto Corsa Composizione, which has amazing sound, it's good, but it ain't as good. I will say that. Both, this car runs, of course, a V6, and you've got that lovely V6 gurgle, and you can hear it in this car. It's a little bit quieter than in both the other sims, but when you hear that gurgle from the engine, you can just hear it there on the overrun. Try and accelerate a little bit. There you go, you can sort of hear it. You pick it up as I'm driving. In both of the other sims, it sounds quite gurgly and quite guttural. In this sim, it sounds... It's got that sound, but it's very raspy. Like when they did the sound balancing for it. You know, someone left the equalizer flat, but then turned 10 kilohertz right up, so it's a little bit raspy on the edge of the note. But I think the sound's good, but I think it could be improved. Another thing I really like is that in this new build, a lot of the cars now have been updated, so the dashboard LED screens... Oh! AI getting a bit close there. Just a little bit of... well, just very close. A lot of the cars that have working LCD screens on the dash, so if they have a screen that you can cycle through, so you could go to one screen, it'll show you your tyre temperatures and brake temperatures, go to another one, it shows you lap times. They all now work, and as soon as I get on a straight, or on the grid straight here, I'm going to try and show you that. If you look at the dash in this car, once we've got round the left-hander here, right, I can now, there you go, I can cycle through this. So there's my... If I cycle through, I've got position, tyre temperatures, brake temperatures, oil pressures. So that's all now working. In fact, I want to keep an eye on my tyre temp, so I'm going to pop it back to the tyre temp screen. That is great. It's just a bit of detail that I really like. ACC is very good at that. Every little dial on the car works, you know, and they seem to be doing more of that within Automobilista 2, which I'm very pleased about. Also, if you turn your headlights on in this car, all of the dials in the car light up. So that's pretty cool. Now, there's one other thing that I wanted to mention. What was it now? I was just thinking of it. I'll come back to that. It'll come to me. Yes, that's it. In terms of cars that actually show you your ABS and traction control levels on screen or on their dash, previously they didn't work. They now work in a lot of cars. So that's great to see. And you know, I'll show you what I mean. In this car doesn't show you that. It's obviously on a dial on the dash. It doesn't show you on screen. But if you change your ABS levels like I have there, you get a little game notification to tell you that they've changed. I would like the option of turning off the game notification, because that comes up by default and you can't turn it off. I'd like the option to be able to turn it off when you're driving a car, which shows you on the dashboard. In terms of the AI, I'll stay on the car for the moment. I have to look after the tyres quite well, and I'm hoping to do this. Well, we're going to have to change to wets, but we will get through this whole stint hopefully, or the dry part of the stint, on these softs. But tyre wear is much more acute now, and Also, flat spotting has, to my mind, improved a lot. If you flat spot the tyres in this car, hopefully, well, I won't, well, I don't know, I may make a mistake and you'll see it as we go through this. But flat spotting really affects your tyre wear. You don't want to flat spot, it'll pick up a lot of tyre wear when you flat spot. And also, through the force feedback, when you really flat spot the tyres, you can really feel it through the steering wheel now. It's much more like it is, it's much more pronounced. It's like it is almost, not to quite the same degree, but it's a little bit more like it is in Assetto Corsa Composizione. Or you can feel it quite well in R-Factor 2. That's really quite well done. But the other thing I've noticed, which I haven't noticed in the other sims, is that when you flat spot a tyre in this sim, if you flat spot it quite badly, the next time you brake, if you lock up or get close to it, get close to locking up, most of the other tyres won't lock up if you're braking properly, but the flat spotted one will lock up a lot easier, and it seems to stay on that flat spot, as you'd expect it to do, and get worse. It's really quite amazing. You'll have to try that for yourselves, but it really does seem to be what's happening. I find that massively impressive. Also,
It's starting to drizzle.
all right, thank you, Jim. Okay, so we've got the rain starting now. Let's see if I can try and gain a place before we pit.
Air temp's falling. It's now
So I'm now in 29th place out of 30. AI behaving themselves tremendously well. The reason I'm on medium aggression, by the way, rather than on max, I find with certain cars, whoa, slight bit of contact there. I should have, that was my fault really. He had the nose in that corner. So glad to see that they won't let you bully them too much. I wasn't concentrating. I've got 1 point of damage on my front end now. So that will cause me, oh, a little bit sideways, That'll be the track getting a little bit moist. It'll get moist pretty quickly because we have got it set to sync to race. But yeah, the reason I have the aggression set to medium, with some cars like say the F1 type cars or open wheeler cars in this sim, I'll set it all the way down to low, just so they don't, then they sort of stay away from each other a little bit more there, as you'd expect them to do with delicate cars. Then if you're racing something like the Copa Classics, low powered, kind of stockish hatchbacks, not too high speed and quite tough, you can set it all the way up to max, so they'll drive close and maybe even have the odd bit of door banging and paint swapping. Not so much door banging, more paint swap, but they get very close to each other, which is, you know, okay for that style of racing. I've got it set to medium here because I find at max with these cars they're reasonably well behaved, but round corner they will get so close to each other front to back that they're almost touching. And also round corners they'll be side by side and they'll lean on each other to the point where they're touching side by side. Not all the time, but more than I'd like. At medium, I find that the aggression is just right for this type of car. You really kind of want to tailor it. I've still got grip here, but I'm going to have to start concentrating soon because the rain is getting heavier. But yeah, as you can see, the AI are behaving themselves really nicely. They will, if you leave a gap, they'll overtake you. But they're careful enough about it. They're not ridiculous. I think we can possibly go one more lap before we have to change our tyres. I don't know what the AI are going to decide to do. Also, by the way, when it comes to looking up your tyres, I don't know if you noticed at the start of the race, but I have this race set to the default date. And on this default date, the track temperature, well, last time I had a practice run for this video, the track temperature was over 50 degrees. So this tarmac is damn hot. You have to be careful with your tyres to keep them below 90 degrees or or worse than that. You have to be careful with the tyres. Once they start getting a bit too warm, the drop-off isn't ridiculous, but it's noticeable, very noticeable. I'm quite really liking how that's done. That seems to have improved in the sim. So, can we make a move?
Air temperature's falling. It's now.
No,
4.
and that's the same McLaren that I gave a knock to when I went down the inside at the last corner earlier, so I'm not going to do that to him again. Track surface feels absolutely great, I must say, by the way, across the various, you know, different bits of tarmac, the painted areas, the curbing, feels fantastic.
Look at your left front braking before.
Oh, there we go! Little bit of a mistake from the AI in front. The AI mistake logic in this is absolutely brilliant as well. They're not ridiculous, but they will have the occasional problem. In the McLaren, they just had a little bit of a slide. I'm being careful under acceleration now. I can see the rain now properly laying on the surface as it's getting more reflective, so...
It's now 38 Celsius.
Right. Oh, we're close. He knows I'm there. And I've made it. I've actually made it. Oh, but he's come back at me. He's come back at me. Once again, we're close. We're starting to lose quite a lot of grip now. Couldn't quite take him on the outside. I really feel now that the rain is laying. I am going to schedule a pit stop. You can see my tyres there are cooling down. He's slowed right down as well. Right. I'll adjust my pit strategy when I get into the pits, because I'm not going to try and do it whilst I'm driving on wet ground. Oh! Nearly had a little bit of lock up there. Certainly a tiny little bit of lock up there. By the way, in terms of flat spotting, you will find it's much easier flat spotting is much more severe in the dry than it is in the wet, as you would expect. So that's nice to see. And right, they're all coming into pit now. Fantastic. Let's get our pit speed limiter on. Let's get our pit strategy up here. So I want no fuel. I should have set up a pit strategy before I did. I've got someone in my pit spot, but in order for us to do that, doesn't matter. Tyres, let's go for wets and repair the damage. There we go.
15 minutes left.
So yeah, in Automobilista 2, if someone is in your pit spot, you can still go in there, unlike you can in, say, something like R Factor 2, where all the cars are solid in the pit lane. Right, we should be on wets now.
Go, go.
And we're coming at last 30th position. Will we pass this car here on the left? Yes. Okay, we're in 29th again. And let's double check we are on wets. So
the track temperature's falling.
Let's get rid of our pit limiter now.
It is clear. Let's get some heat to these brakes.
And I'll need to turn my lights on in a moment. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Let's do it, let's do it. Little bit slippery, little bit slippery. Cold wets. Right, lights are on. And let's get our HUD back up. There we go. So, this combo is really good, although I will say this, I do find that with the GT3s, the AI for the GT3s are still, when it starts to rain, they do, their ability as compared to mine, because I'm reasonably decent at racing in the rain, and I do race with changing conditions quite a lot. They are a little bit slower than me, or slower than I'd like them to be, compared to me in the wet. I find them, you know, that I find in the dry, at the same skill level, I find them more of a challenge. In the wet, I find them a little bit too easy to catch up with and overtake. But not too bad, not too bad. So for instance, compared to the GT4s, we've made a position there.
Come on, Paul. Nicely done.
Okay, short shifting so we don't over accelerate those back wheels in the wet. The GT4s are really good. They're just about right. I find them as much of a challenge in the wet as I do in the dry. In fact, if anything, they're slightly faster than, ever such a touch faster than me in the wet. That could obviously be solved with a little bit of, if you were prepared to edit the AI files, you could, I think there's enough wiggle room there with a small amount of adjustment you could do to get them just right for the GT3s. I still would like it if in this game you had a separate slider, so you've got their general skill ability. I'd like a separate slider for wet ability, because all the cars are different and people have different skills in the wet. Anyway, I'll show you what I mean. Without having to concentrate too hard, I think I'm going to be able to make more places now whilst I'm talking to you in the wet than I was doing in the dry there, and possibly move up the grid a bit. Brake as late as possible into the corkscrew. Little bit of scrub for the tyres and we're through cleanly.
Good stuff. Keep it coming.
In terms of how the AI behave, not just against the player but between each other, I am pleased to say that I now see the AI overtaking much better. I have watched an AI through a race just race its way through the pack. From the back of the pack, by the end of the race it's made about 5 or 6 places on the other cars and keeps going. Sometimes settling out at a certain point for a while. So that's really good to see. I've noticed that certain AI cars having very different characteristics. Like one of the AI cars will make is a bit heavy footed on the throttle occasionally and will make the odd mistake, get the back end out a bit more than others. They've really got some good character. But and of course the wet weather looks fantastic. The wet weather physics, made a mistake. I locked up a little bit there, almost went into the back of the car in front. The wet weather tyre physics as well are very good now, that especially compared to how they used to be when the game was in its early stages of development. Right, can I make another place? Here, no. Oh, I've just ever slightly. I locked up a little bit there and just ever so slightly touched the back of his end. The back of the Porsche's rear quarter there, but caused no damage, even though we're on match damage because we were both going at about the same velocity. Can I make it? I've dived a bit there. I mucked that up and he switched back on me. And there he is, look at that. That's a good challenge. Oh! There is a lot less of the jolty behaviour from them as well now, so they don't dart about so much, which is good. And I've got him on the outside, look at that. So they're much better in that respect. I really am enjoying driving this car. Let's pop on one click of traction control just to help us out in the rain a little bit, and we'll have one click of ABS. Traction control works very well these days in this sim. I do find the ABS is still a little bit iffy. It's if I could compare it to anything, it's the ABS works more akin to things like iRacing and R Factor 2 than it does to the way the ABS. No, actually, more akin to the way it does in iRacing, less so in R Factor 2, but very differently to how it works in ACC. ACC's got probably the best ABS in the business at the moment, I'd say. But it's not too bad. But I think it could do with improving. Right, see if I can make it another space here. Oh, risky move, but made it through, made it through.
Well done, mate, that was great.
Careful on the throttle as we come out, a little bit slide, but we're, oh, a little bit more there, but we're through. Also, wet tyres now actually achieve temperature, whereas in previous builds you could never get the wets up to a decent temperature. You know, obviously wet tyres have a much lower operating temperature than dries, but you'd never get them in the green. Now they do, which is great. Oh, I've gone a bit wide. And you can see in my mirrors there, I've kind of left those AI behind now. Like I said, with this class of cars, they are a little bit too slow in the wet, but let's see if any of them catch up. I'm assuming I'm going to catch these guys in front before they catch up behind me. Force feedback has been tightened up as well, worth noting in the patch notes for this build of the sim. The force feedback has been tightened up for certain cars in general as well, and it does. You can feel it. It seems faster, more accurate, more reactive to slides. There you go. You know, you put on, give it the appropriate amount of power, and you give it, if the back end comes out, you give it the appropriate amount of counter steer, and it all kind of works, which is nice. Got two cars having a little bit of a battle here, the McLaren and the Nismo. I love seeing the Nismo in this game, it just looks great. I know it's a very sort of boxy, basic shape for a car, but I just, certain details about it, I just love. You know, the back lights, for instance. But once again, there I keep overtaking at the Corkscrew.
Come on, Paul. Good stuff. Keep it coming.
I'm finding that they're braking too early in the rain.
Five minutes remaining. 5 minutes left.
Although, having said that, it's a bit more obvious now because I'm talking slightly less and concentrating more on the driving than I was earlier in the race when we were in the dry. So if I'd have been concentrating a bit harder in the dry, I would have made more places.
20th place.
I'm very much looking forward to an online race. I might run a server, which if you're subscribed to the channel, you are welcome to come and join me on. We'll have a full sim race with full sim settings at this track with the GT3s at some point. And there's a big gap now. We've got a big gap between me and the rest of the cars. Some people have been saying that the AI still hang around in clusters of 2 or 3 for a bit too long. Obviously that's going to prove a problem on things like oval courses, but I'm finding in general they're much better at that now. I don't see that as much. Like I said, cars will now, if they're faster than other cars, will now move through the pack much quicker now that that overtaking logic has been sussed out a little bit more.
You're reeling Kennedy in. The gap is 3.6 seconds. He's pretty slow into Corkscrew.
Feather it, feather it, feather it. But yeah, in general, this car and with the improvements to the AI, I'm loving. I have heard reports that with certain cars, like the Indy cars on ovals, some of the new logic's not quite worked, and the AI are starting to do a bit of a train. So I have heard those reports. When Reza bring out a new build, they do tend to sort of bring out the new build, and then after they've had a little bit of a rest, they'll then patch some of the problems or reported issues in the coming week or weeks. They would have done that by now usually, but I think they all need a break because they were working so hard over Christmas that I think they're all sort of having their New Year's now, if you like. But I'm sure that will all be sorted out. But for these cars, the GT3s are one of the car sets in the sim which has been worked on a lot, being premium content. And also it's been in the sim for quite a while, so they've had time to really hone these down.
Good work, mate.
So it's quite good in this respect.
Just 2 minutes left, 2 minutes to go.
I might try making a custom AI file or custom AI files for the GT3s and see if I can bring up their ability in the wet. It only needs to come up a little bit, so I'm sort of more equal to their performance against mine in the dry, if you see what I mean.
V19, you've just done a 133.30.
I also heard that some people were saying about the tyre wear, how it is now. I mentioned earlier, you can, if you flat spot the tyres, you can really wear them out. But people were saying the tyre wear, I think someone said it was a bit too much. I'm not finding that at all. I can do a 20-minute race on these soft tyres as long as I treat them well, no problem. I'm sure I could do a 30-minute stint. I'm actually finding that pretty good. And luckily for me, I've not managed to, I didn't manage to flat spot my dry tyres earlier. But do try that. Do really try slamming on the brakes with no ABS and flat spotting these tyres. You can really feel it through your force feedback. And that's without any of the effects turned on, by the way, in the force feedback. That obviously you've got your pure signal, and then you've got an effect slider. I don't use the effect slider. I don't need it. I've got everything I need, mainly through what's coming through the wheel. But you can feel that flat spotting really, really well. Oh no! I made a bit of a dive down the inside, nearly hit the Mercedes. But the avoidance there, he's not let me have it, but he's made sure he doesn't get hit at the same time. I'm impressed. Oh! Kept the throttle down a little bit too long. Oh, and he's come back. See, the moment I make a mistake, they're on it. They may be a little bit slower than me in the rain, but if I make a mistake, they're on it. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh! And once again, he had the nose for that corner. If I'd have hit him, it would have been my fault, but he's not let me have it. He's defended and kept, or held his line and got through there. Stayed ahead of me. Very impressive. Right. Oh, but the Mercedes there has got out of that slight left-hander a lot better than I have. And, oh, no, I'm not going to, no, I can't, no. Can I make a place on him before the end of the race? One more spot, because I think this might be the last lap, or last but one. I don't want to be encouraging myself to push it too hard and just crash at the end of the race here. I shouldn't have really done that. That was a bit of a dive, but he's right on my tail.
P18.
And
okay, that's the end.
there we go. Well, that's the end of the race. I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope, whilst I've been chatting away, you've been able to... I'll leave the replay footage so you can see what's going on with the cars from the trackside camera views as well in this video. I hope you've been able to see, get a good visual experience and just see the behaviour as well as what I'm sort of, or listening to my thoughts, because obviously you have your own. But I hope you've enjoyed that. Can I slide it? Yes, I can slide it a little bit. Brilliant. If you have enjoyed this video, please do subscribe to the channel and you'll be updated on further videos. I do run a lot of live servers as well, which I live stream. So if you subscribe to the channel, you'll always be notified of when I'm going live. You can come and join the server, and I do that in Ultimate Ballista 2 and R Factor 2 at the moment. And I hope you're enjoying the new content for Ultimate Ballista 2 and all the great new stuff that came out just before Christmas for maybe R Factor 2 and BeamMG, and looking forward to all of the things that are coming within the year. I know R Factor 2's apparently got some very exciting stuff to show us for the Q1 drop, which will be happening, I think, by the next month, I think. But I very much enjoyed that. Do try this combo out. You've got all my settings, and all the best. Happy sim racing. See you soon. If you want this channel to survive, do me a favor and hit subscribe. May seem like a small thing to do, but it enables me to make more videos for you. By hitting that button, you can help us thrive.